You're just the mechanic.
The billionaire scoffed, loud enough for the valet line to hush. Don't touch it unless you want to pay for it. By the way, where are you watching from? Tell me in the comments below. The man beside the tow truck didn't flinch. Rain speckled his oil-stained jacket and darkened the canvas of his tool bag. Behind him, the Charity Gala's glass doors glowed, spilling music into the service lane, where workers stayed invisible unless something broke. She stood in a black coat that looked tailored to judge. Diamonds flashed at her throat as she stared at her silent, luxury sedan blocking the VIP drop-off. "I don't have time for this," she said, eyes already searching for someone higher ranking to blame. He glanced toward the tow truck cab. A little girl sat buckled in the passenger seat, hands wrapped around a paper cup, watching him like he was the only solid thing in the storm. He breathed in exhaust and winter air, then turned back to the car as if it were simply a problem with an answer. The billionaire's smirk held steady, until the valet's scanner began beeping and the security gate froze halfway down. The line of arriving donors snarled. Cameras lifted. The night built for her image started to buckle. Caleb Rourke crouched by the driver's door, calm enough to irritate everyone who wanted him rattled. He didn't argue, he just listened. Head tilted slightly, like he could hear something inside the vehicle that the rest of them couldn't. He'd been dismissed before, but never with Mila hearing every word. The valet manager hovered. "Ma'am, we've got arrivals stacking up. If the gate stays down..." "Fix it," Veronica Halden snapped, not looking at him. Her gaze stayed on Caleb as if he were a stain. "And keep him away from my car." Mila's small face appeared in the tow truck window, fogging the glass. Caleb felt the old weight. Rent, groceries, a custody review that treated love like a spreadsheet. His daughter didn't need to see him win an argument. She needed to see him refuse to shrink. He stood, wiped his hands on a rag, and opened the hood with practiced ease. The engine bay was spotless, sealed panels and branded covers designed to keep hands like his out. He didn't bother with the battery. His eyes went straight to the dash, then the steering column, then the faint pulsing tick that didn't belong in a dead car. "Battery's fine," he murmured. Veronica laughed. "He's talking to it. Unadorable." A few donors chuckled. Someone filmed. Caleb heard it all and gave it nothing. He leaned in, palm resting lightly near the ignition panel, feeling heat from hidden circuits. That tick again, electronic, stubborn, intentional. "It's not dead," he said quietly. "It's locked." The valet manager blinked. The guard's hand drifted toward his radio. Veronica's chin lifted. "It's my car." "Not right now," Caleb answered. He reached into his bag and pulled out a battered diagnostic reader. Scratched, unimpressive. He connected it anyway. The screen blinked, then spilled codes across its tiny display. The crowd saw nonsense. Caleb saw a familiar architecture, a logic tree he recognized like an old map. Veronica stepped closer. "If you damage it, I'll ruin you. People like you don't recover." He didn't look up. In his mind, he saw Mila coughing last month, the pharmacy counter, the delay, the way he'd held her while the world moved on. Threats were nothing compared to losing her. He finally met Veronica's eyes. His gaze wasn't pleading or angry. It was measured, and that unsettled her. "Another truck won't help," he said, "and towing it will trip the gate system again." The gala coordinator appeared near the doors, face tight. "Veronica, the board is asking what's happening. The live stream..." Veronica's confidence flickered. She hated that the crowd was watching her lose control. She hated that the worker she'd dismissed was the only person speaking with certainty. Caleb took one slow breath. "You can keep threatening me," he said, voice low, "or you can let me finish before this becomes your headline." A murmur rolled through the bystanders. Mila pressed her palm to the tow truck window. Caleb felt it like a hand on his back. He slid into the driver's seat. Someone gasped, offended by the sight of him inside a world built to exclude. The interior smelled like expensive leather. Caleb didn't admire it. His fingers hovered near the ignition panel, not rushing, not showy, precise. Outside, the scanner beeped again as the gate shuddered and stopped. Veronica's mouth opened with another insult, but it didn't come out. Too many eyes. Caleb glanced at Mila through the windshield. Her eyes were wide, trusting, fierce with hope. Something in him hardened into iron. He began the sequence. The sequence began with a pause, deliberate enough to look like hesitation. Inside the car, the dashboard lights flickered, then steadied. A low chime vibrating through the leather seat and into his spine. Outside, the murmurs swelled. Phones stayed raised. The night seemed to lean closer. "Sir, you can't," the guard started. "It's fine," the valet manager said, unsure, eyes glued to the dash. He's doing something." Veronica's heels clicked once, sharp and impatient. "Get him out of there," she said, then softer, venomous, "before he breaks it." He ignored the noise and focused on the rhythm he'd learned years ago, back when failure meant more than embarrassment. His fingers hovered, then pressed. Left panel, breath, right panel, counting under his breath without numbers. The chime changed pitch. The immobilizer icon blinked, angry red to amber. He felt the system loosen, not surrender. A donor in a tailored coat leaned toward another. "Is that supposed to happen?" "No," the other whispered. "I don't think so." From the tow truck, Mila leaned forward, seatbelt biting into her jacket. She mouthed his name without sound. He gave a small nod she probably didn't see, but it steadied him anyway. The gate outside shuddered again. The scanner beeped once, then went silent. A ripple ran through the line of cars as engines idled and drivers craned their necks. "Ma'am," the coordinator said, too polite to be calm. The stream chat's asking questions. Veronica's jaw tightened. "Then tell them it's being handled." He slid the diagnostic reader free and set it on the passenger seat like a promise kept. The dash lights dimmed. For a breathless second, nothing happened. Then the engine turned over, smooth, controlled, unmistakably alive. The sound cut the lane clean. Applause didn't erupt. It never does when people realize they've been wrong. What came instead was a stunned quiet, broken by a laugh from somewhere near the doors. The gate rose the rest of the way, obedient now, and the line of arrivals began to move. Veronica stared at the hood as if it had betrayed her. "That's impossible," she said, too loud. "That system doesn't allow—" "It allows what it was designed to," he said, stepping out. He closed the door gently, not a flourish in him. "And it doesn't like being forced." A man near the valet desk squinted, curiosity overtaking disdain. "You said it was locked. That's a proprietary failsafe." He met the man's eyes, then looked away. "It is." The coordinator exhaled. "We're back on schedule," she said into her headset, relief cracking her voice. Yes, I know." Veronica found her voice again, brittle. "You had no authorization. If anything happens—" "Nothing happened," he said. "It started." The valet manager cleared his throat. "Ma'am, the lane's clear. We need to move your car." Veronica opened the driver's door herself, reclaiming space. Before she slid in, she looked at him like a calculation gone wrong. "What do you want?" she asked, as if everything had a price. He thought of bills stacked on the counter, of the letter with bold headings and thin mercy. He thought of Mila's hand on the glass. "Just my fee," he said, "and for you to stop calling me names in front of my kid." A hush fell again, heavier this time. Someone behind the rope line murmured approval. A phone camera dipped, then lifted. Veronica's cheeks colored. "Fine," she said, tossing a card toward the valet desk. "Send it." As she drove off, the night resumed its noise, but something had shifted. The guard lowered his hand from the radio. The valet manager offered a nod that meant respect, not thanks. Mila was already unbuckling when he reached the truck. She hopped down, wrapping her arms around his leg. "You did it," she said, pride shining. He crouched to her height. "We did," he corrected softly. "If this is hitting close to home, go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss how this turns, because it's not over yet." Behind them, a man in an expensive coat lingered, studying the diagnostic reader left on the passenger seat. "That's an old model," he said. "They stopped issuing those years ago." He followed the man's gaze, then closed the truck door. "Still works," he said. The man smiled, slow. "Only if you know how to talk to it." He didn't answer. He started the truck, the engine's familiar rattle grounding him. As they pulled away, the gala lights shrank in the mirror, but the looks stayed with him. The questions, the recalculations. Power had noticed him, and that was a dangerous thing. Mila leaned against the door, sleepy now. "Daddy," she said, a voice small. "Why were they mean?" He tightened his grip on the wheel, choosing honesty without bitterness. "Sometimes people think money makes them right," he said. "It doesn't." She nodded, satisfied. Outside, the rain eased. Inside, the quiet felt earned. Rain thinned to a mist as the truck merged into traffic, the gala shrinking to a smear of light. The quiet inside settled heavy, broken only by the wipers and the hum he knew by heart. He kept both hands on the wheel, replaying the tick, the amber icon, the way the crowd went still. Mila's head tipped against the window. "They stared," she said. "They did," he answered. "That's okay." She considered that, then yawned. The city slid past, wet and bright. He felt the aftershock now that the adrenaline drained, a familiar ache in his forearms, a pressure behind his eyes. Being seen had a cost. His phone buzzed in the cup holder. Dispatch. He let it ring once, then answered. "Yeah." A voice tight with caution filled the cab. "We got a call from a client," the dispatcher said. "Says you accessed a vehicle without authorization, claims damages." He exhaled slowly. "There aren't damages, the car started." "Uh-huh," the dispatcher said. "They're influential." He glanced at Mila, already drifting. "I logged the codes," he said, "and I had witnesses." Silence, then a sigh. "Bring the truck in after this run," the dispatcher said. "We'll talk." The call ended. He set the phone down carefully, as if it might bruise. The city's reflections stretched and snapped on the windshield. He thought of the card tossed at the desk. The easy assumption that payment erased conduct. It didn't erase consequences. They reached the small apartment lot 10 minutes later. He parked under the flickering light and carried Mila upstairs, her weight warm and real against his shoulder. Inside, the place smelled like soap and toast. He tucked her into bed, brushed hair from her eyes, and paused until her breathing evened. In the kitchen, he leaned against the counter. The diagnostic reader sat on the table, its cracked casing dull under the bulb. He'd meant to put it away. He didn't. A knock came, soft but insistent. He stilled. On another knock, firmer. He checked the peephole. The man from the valet line stood there, rain beating on his collar. Expensive coat, careful eyes, not security. He opened the door a crack. "It's late." "I know," the man said. "I won't take long. I'm Arthur Bell. I consult." "For who?" "Manufacturers," Bell said, "and people who need them." His gaze flicked past the door, polite. "I saw what you did." He weighed the risk. Being noticed again, this close to home tightened his chest. "I fixed a car." Bell smiled. "You bypassed a rolling immobilizer without tripping a cascade. That's not roadside work." "I didn't bypass," he said. "I reset." Bell's eyebrows lifted, just a fraction. "Exactly." He stepped aside enough to end the standoff. Bell didn't enter. He stayed in the hall, respectful. "Veronica Halden doesn't like being embarrassed," Bell said. "She's already making calls." "Figures." "She'll say you're a thief," Bell continued, "or reckless, or both." He nodded once. "She can say what she wants." "She can say it loudly," Bell said, "but not accurately. Those systems were yours." The words landed and kept landing. He didn't correct him. He didn't confirm. He closed his eyes for a beat, then opened them. "You should go." Bell held up a hand. "I'm not here to recruit you or threaten you. I'm here to warn you and to tell you that there were cameras." "Of course there were." "Not just phones," Bell said. "Event feeds, valet security, multiple angles." He smiled again, slower. "Public angles." A knot loosened in his chest, replaced by something colder and steadier. "Then the truth will do fine." Bell nodded. It usually does. For what it's worth, I tried to stop her." "Did you?" "At first," Bell said. "Then I watched." He closed the door gently after Bell left and leaned his forehead against the wood. In the quiet, the apartment felt smaller, safer. He turned back to the table and picked up the reader, thumb tracing the worn edge. His phone buzzed again. A new number. He let it go to voicemail. Another buzz, then another. He powered it off. In the bedroom, Mila stirred. "Daddy? I'm here," he said, already moving. She blinked up at him. "Are we in trouble?" He sat on the bed, choosing his words like tools. "Some people don't like it when things don't go their way," he said, "but we didn't do anything wrong." She studied his face, searching for cracks. Finding none, she nodded. "Okay." He kissed her forehead and stood. In the living room, rain whispered against the windows. Somewhere across the city, a billionaire rewrote a story to save her pride. He picked up the reader and set it back in his bag. Tomorrow, there would be meetings and accusations and a job on the line. Morning came with the sound of trucks on wet pavement and the smell of burnt coffee. He stood at the sink, staring through the window as the city woke without him. Mila sat at the small table, swinging her legs, coloring carefully inside the lines like control was something you could practice. His phone stayed dark. He'd turned it back on after dawn, expecting a flood. There were messages. Dispatch, a missed call from a number he didn't recognize, another from the same. No voicemail from her. That didn't mean anything good. He packed Mila's lunch and walked her to the bus stop, hand warm around hers. Other parents nodded. Familiar faces with unfamiliar worries. He waited until the bus pulled away before heading back, the quiet following him up the stairs. At the garage, the bay doors were already open. Engines idled. Tools clinked. He rolled the truck into its slot and cut the engine. The dispatcher stood near the office door, arms crossed, jaw set. "Inside," she said. He wiped his boots and stepped into the office. The owner sat behind the desk, fingers steepled. A printout lay between them like evidence. "You didn't tell me you were messing with luxury security systems," the owner said. "I fixed a car," he replied evenly. You accessed proprietary tech without authorization, the owner said. That's what the complaint says. He leaned forward, palms flat. I had verbal consent from the coordinator. The lane was blocked. Or the system was interfering with the gate. The owner glanced at the dispatcher, then back. Veronica Halden called at 6 this morning. There it was. The name tasted like metal. And she wants you suspended pending review, the owner said. She hinted at legal action. The dispatcher shifted. I told her we'd investigate. He nodded once. You should. The owner sighed. You've been solid here, but this isn't a small thing. He thought of Mila's lunch, the careful apple slices. I logged everything, he said. Codes, timestamps, there were witnesses. Witnesses don't always matter, the owner said. They do when there are cameras, he replied. The owner's eyes flicked up. What cameras? He didn't smile. All of them. Silence stretched. The owner leaned back, considering. We'll put you on leave, he said. Paid. For now. Relief and anger tangled in his chest. For now, he repeated. Outside, the shop noise felt distant. He sat in the truck and let the seat creak under him. Being sidelined felt like losing ground he couldn't afford to give. His phone buzzed. The unknown number again. He answered. Yeah. Caleb Rourke, a woman said, voice cool and practiced. This is Veronica Halden. He closed his eyes. So much for silence. You found me. I don't miss, she said. You embarrassed me. You did that yourself. A pause. You overstepped. I'm prepared to make this unpleasant. He pictured her diamonds catching light. You already have. You think a few cameras protect you? She asked. I can bury you in paperwork. I didn't steal, he said. I didn't damage anything. You touched what wasn't yours. He felt the familiar tick of anger, controlled and contained. Your car blocked a public lane, he said. Your system caused a failure. I fixed it. Another pause, sharper now. What do you want? He almost laughed. I want you to stop lying about me. Silence, then softer. You want money? No, he said. I want my job. She exhaled, annoyed. You should have thought of that before grandstanding. I wasn't grandstanding, he said. I was working. She hung up. He stared at the phone until the screen dimmed. The shop door rattled as a truck pulled in. Life went on, indifferent. At noon, Arthur Bell appeared again, this time in the parking lot. He didn't wait to be invited. She's pushing, Bell said, harder than I expected. She doesn't like losing, he replied. She doesn't like witnesses, Bell corrected. Which is why she's trying to move this behind closed doors. Won't work, Bell nodded. There's talk of a board meeting tonight, emergency. She wants to control the narrative. He looked at the shop, the tools, the men who worked without being seen. Control needs darkness, he said. She doesn't have it. Bell smiled thinly. That's why I'm here. The feeds from last night are circulating, not viral yet, but close. Close counts. Sometimes, Bell said, if someone pushes. He met Bell's gaze. I don't chase attention. You don't have to, Bell said. It's already looking for you. His phone buzzed again. Dispatch. He answered, bracing. They're asking for statements, the dispatcher said. Legal, media. He closed his eyes and thought of Mila stepping off the bus later, looking for his truck. Tell them I'll come in, he said. I'm not hiding. When he hung up, the air felt charged, like a storm waiting. He climbed into the truck, not sure where he was driving, only that standing still would cost him more. Across the city, Veronica Halden gathered her allies, confident in rooms built to amplify her voice. He turned the key and pulled out, carrying the truth with him like a tool that could cut both ways. He parked 2 blocks from the glass tower and walked the rest, collar up against the wind. The building rose clean and reflective, a place where decisions were made far from grease and rain. Inside, the lobby hummed with quiet authority, polished floors, soft lighting, people who moved like they belonged. Arthur Bell met him near the elevators, tie loosened for once. "They moved it up," Bell said. "Boards already assembling." "Of course they are." Bell glanced at the tool bag slung over his shoulder. "You won't need that." "Habit," he said, and didn't set it down. They took a service elevator, narrow and unadorned. The doors closed with a muted thud, trapping them in a space meant for labor, not leadership. He preferred it. It smelled honest. "She's framing this as a safety breach," Bell said. "Reckless contractor endangered guests." "And the footage?" Bell smiled. "Still rolling." The elevator opened onto a back corridor. Voices leaked from the boardroom ahead, low and confident. He felt the familiar tightening in his chest. Not fear, exactly, but the weight of rooms like this. He'd been in them before, long ago, when his badge opened doors instead of closing them. They stopped short of the doors. Bell hesitated. "Once you step in, you won't control how this spreads." He thought of Mila at school, the way she'd looked back to make sure he was watching. "I'm not controlling it," he said. "I'm standing in it." Bell nodded and pushed the door open. The room fell quiet in a way that had nothing to do with respect. Veronica sat at the head of the table, immaculate, eyes sharp. Screens along the wall showed paused footage from the night before, frozen on his hands near the ignition panel. "There he is," she said lightly. "Our mystery mechanic." He didn't answer. He took the empty chair near the wall, placing his bag at his feet. The board members studied him like an object under glass. Veronica continued. "This man accessed my vehicle without authorization, causing a disruption that risked donor safety and the event's reputation." He met her gaze. "Steady. Your vehicle locked itself and interfered with the gate system. I resolved it." "You're not certified to resolve anything of mine," she said. A board member cleared his throat. "Mr. Rourke, is it? Do you have documentation?" He reached into his bag and set the diagnostic reader on the table. It looked small and unimpressive against the polished wood. "I have logs," he said, "and timestamps, and system responses." Veronica laughed softly. "That toy doesn't impress me." "It shouldn't," he said. "It impresses the system." Bell tapped a tablet, and the screen shifted. The paused footage began to play, then split, multiple angles synchronized. The room leaned forward, despite itself. "Pause," Bell said. The frame froze on the immobilizer icon, changing color. "That sequence," Bell continued, "is not public-facing. It's an internal fail-safe reset." Veronica's smile thinned. "Anyone could guess." "Not without tripping a cascade," Bell said, which didn't happen. A murmur ran the table. Veronica turned to him. "You trained yourself on YouTube?" He shook his head once. "I trained on prototypes." The words landed heavier than he expected. The room shifted again. A woman near the far end frowned. "Prototypes for what?" "For that platform," he said, nodding toward the screen, "and the one before it." Veronica stood. "Enough. This is a stunt. He wants attention." He stayed seated. "I want the record straight. You don't get to lecture us," she snapped. He felt the heat rise and kept it contained. "You called me just the mechanic in front of my daughter," he said. "You told people I was untrustworthy. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a lie." The room went still. Even Veronica paused, recalibrating. Bell spoke softly. "There's more." He tapped again. The screen showed an older clip, him years younger, standing beside a stripped-down chassis, explaining a system to a group of engineers. The badge on his chest was clear enough. A board member's eyes widened. "That's—" Veronica's face drained of color. He didn't look at the screen. He looked at her. "I didn't come to embarrass you," he said. "You did that yourself." Silence stretched, thick and public. Phones buzzed outside the room. The world pressed closer. If you're still with me, go ahead and subscribe, because this moment is where everything turns, and you won't want to miss what happens next. Veronica found her voice brittle now. "This footage, how did you get it?" "It's public," Bell said. "You streamed it." The irony settled like dust. A board member leaned forward. "Mr. Rourke, why are you driving a tow truck?" He considered the question. "Because my wife got sick," he said. "Because my daughter needed me more than a title. Because work is work." Another pause. Respect crept in, unwelcome and undeniable. Veronica sat slowly. "This conversation isn't over," she said quieter. "It is for me," he replied. "You stop pushing false complaints, you correct the record, or this keeps going, without either of us controlling it." The board exchanged looks. Power recalculated. Outside, the city waited, indifferent but watching. He sat back, heart steady, knowing that whatever came next would be in the open. And that was where he was strongest. The room didn't erupt the way movies promise. It settled into a tight, dangerous quiet where everyone recalculated their footing. He felt it in the way chairs stopped creaking, in the way eyes shifted from Veronica to the screens and back again, measuring who could still be trusted. A board member cleared his throat. "We need to understand exposure," he said, voice clipped. "If this footage is public—" "It is," Bell replied. "Multiple feeds, archived, downloaded." Veronica's fingers tightened around the edge of the table. "This is a distraction," she said. "We're talking about a contractor overstepping." "A contractor who designed the system," someone said softly. She shot them a look. "Allegedly." He leaned forward just enough to be heard. "You can keep saying that," he said, "but the logs don't lie." Bell slid a document across the table. Timestamps, hashes, signatures, dry things that carried weight. "These match internal builds from 8 years ago," Bell said, before the platform went public. A woman near the window frowned. "Those builds were restricted." "They were," Bell agreed, "to a small team." All eyes found him again. He felt the old familiarity of scrutiny, the sense of being evaluated not for what he was doing, but for what he represented. He stayed still. Let the facts move. Veronica stood abruptly. "This is harassment," she said. "You're ambushing us with selectively edited footage and—" "Your stream," Bell said gently. "Your cameras." She froze. The truth hung there, impolite and undeniable. A board member tapped the table. "Veronica, did you authorize a complaint against his employer?" She hesitated, then lifted her chin. "I asked questions." "Did you threaten legal action?" Another asked. "I protected the brand." The words landed wrong. He saw it in the way shoulders stiffened. Brands were fragile things in rooms like this, and she just framed one as a shield for bad behavior. He spoke again, quieter now. "I don't want anything from you," he said. "I want you to undo what you did." "And if I don't?" she asked. "Then this continues," he said, "in the open." The board chair exhaled. "We need a recess." They broke into clusters. Veronica moved to the far corner, phone already in hand, voice low and urgent. Bell leaned toward him. "You did what you came to do," Bell said. "Don't overplay it." "I'm not playing," he replied. A notification buzzed on Belle's tablet. He glanced, then smiled without humor. Too late anyway. What is it? Someone clipped the moment she called you just the mechanic, Belle said. It's spreading. He closed his eyes briefly. He pictured Mila at recess, laughing with kids who didn't know any of this. He pictured the bus ride home, the way she'd look for him at the curb. Across the room, Veronica finished her call and returned, posture controlled, but eyes sharp. We can resolve this quietly, she said. I'll withdraw the complaint. Issue a clarification. A clarification? A board member repeated. That the situation was misunderstood, Veronica said. That no harm was done. He shook his head once. You said I was untrustworthy. You implied I was dangerous. Quiet doesn't fix that. She stared at him, disbelief flickering. You want an apology? I want the truth, he said. The board chair stood. Veronica, he said, you will correct the record publicly. Her mouth opened, then closed. That's excessive. It's necessary, the chair said. The optics are already bad. Transparency is the only move left. He felt the shift then, not victory, but inevitability. The room had chosen the path of least damage, and for once it ran through honesty. Veronica's shoulders slumped a fraction. She nodded once, sharp. Fine. Belle checked his tablet again. There's one more thing. Veronica's head snapped up. What now? Belle turned the screen so the board could see. A message thread scrolled past. Employees, donors, attendees, all sharing the clip. Comments stacked beneath it. Not outrage alone, but recognition. A board member murmured, "They're calling him the designer." Veronica looked at him, something like fear finally breaking through. "You planned this?" "No," he said, "you did." The chair cleared his throat. "We'll draft a statement immediately. Veronica, you'll sign." She nodded, brittle. "And him?" The chair met his eyes. "We'll include acknowledgement of his role." "That's not what I asked," she said. He answered anyway. "I don't need acknowledgement," he said. "I need you to stop trying to ruin people when you're embarrassed." The words cut clean. Veronica flinched. The meeting dissolved into logistics. Statements, timelines, calls to legal. He stayed seated until Belle touched his shoulder. "You can go," Belle said. "They've got it." He stood, slung his bag over his shoulder, and headed for the door. No one stopped him. As he stepped into the corridor, the building felt different. Less imposing, more hollow. In the elevator, Belle stood beside him. "You okay?" He nodded. "I will be." When the doors opened onto the street, cold air rushed in. He breathed deep. His phone buzzed. Dispatch. "They're backing off," the dispatcher said, relief evident. "Complaints withdrawn." "Good," he said. "And the owner wants to talk about a raise." He smiled, small and tired. "We'll see." He walked into the city, the noise meeting him like an old friend. Somewhere, a statement was being drafted. Somewhere else, a little girl would be stepping off a bus, looking for him. He headed that way, the truth moving ahead of him now, unstoppable and loud. He reached the bus stop 5 minutes early and stood where Mila could see him first. The curb was wet, the air sharp, and the afternoon crowd moved with the dull urgency of routine. His phone stayed quiet in his pocket, which felt like a small mercy. The bus hissed to a stop. Doors folded open. Mila stepped down, backpack bouncing, eyes scanning until they locked onto him. She broke into a run and crashed into his legs, arms tight. "You're here," she said, breathless. "I said I would be." They walked home slower than usual. She told him about spelling words and a classmate who cried when the glue spilled. He listened, nodding, letting the ordinary settle him. Being present was its own kind of resistance. At the apartment, he started dinner while Mila spread homework across the table. The kettle whistled. The radio murmured news. Then the anchor's tone shifted. Following up on last night's charity gala disruption, the voice said. Footage circulating online shows a roadside mechanic resolving a failure in a high-security luxury vehicle after being publicly dismissed by billionaire Veronica Halden. He froze, spoon midair. Mila looked up. "Daddy?" "It's okay," he said, forcing his voice steady. He turned the volume down. The phone buzzed, then buzzed again. Unknown numbers stacked up like ants. He ignored them and set plates on the table. After dinner, while Mila brushed her teeth, he finally checked the messages. Voicemails from reporters, texts from co-workers. One from the owner, "We should talk." Another from Arthur Bell, "It's everywhere." He sat on the couch, shoulders heavy. Public attention was a flood, cleansing and dangerous in equal measure. He didn't want to be a symbol. He wanted to be a dad who made rent. A knock came at the door, not Bell this time. The owner stood in the hall, jacket open, eyes tired. "Can I come in?" he asked. He nodded and stepped aside. They stood near the table, the diagnostic reader visible where it sat. The owner rubbed his face. "I watched the clips," he said. "I didn't know." "I didn't advertise." "No," the owner said. "You didn't." He took a breath. "I messed up this morning." "You were under pressure." "That's not an excuse," the owner said. "I put you on leave to protect the shop. Turns out protecting the shop means protecting you." He waited. "I'm offering you a supervisor role," the owner said. "Higher pay, benefits, flexible hours." The words landed, heavy and real. "I appreciate it," he said. "I need to think." "Of course," the owner said. "One more thing." He hesitated. "Veronica's people called. They wanted me to distance the shop." "And?" "I said no," the owner said, publicly. Respect, unexpected and grounding, settled in his chest. "Thank you." After the owner left, Mila climbed onto his lap. "They were talking about you," she said. "Get on the radio." "What did they say?" "That you fixed the car even though the lady was mean," she said. "Mrs. Klein says that's brave," he smiled. "Mrs. Klein is wise." "Are you famous now?" Mila asked. "No," he said, "just visible." That night he lay awake, phone face down, letting the hum of the building fill the dark. Being visible meant scrutiny. It meant people projecting stories onto him. It also meant Veronica Halden couldn't bury him quietly. The next morning, his phone rang with a number he recognized this time. He answered. "This is Veronica Halden," she said, voice clipped. "I'm issuing the statement at noon." "Good," he said. "I will say you acted appropriately," she continued, "that my remarks were inappropriate." "They were wrong," he said. A pause. "Wrong," she repeated. "You'll get what you want." "I want the truth," he said again. She exhaled, then stopped talking to reporters. "I haven't," he said, another pause. "They'll keep coming." "I know." She hesitated, something like exhaustion bleeding through. "I underestimated you." "Yes," he said. The call ended without pleasantries. By noon, the statement dropped. Carefully worded, public, unavoidable. Screenshots spread, commentary followed. Some praised him. Others attacked her. He didn't read much of it. He packed Mila's lunch and walked her to the bus. At the stop, a woman recognized him. "You're the mechanic," she said, smiling. He corrected gently. "I'm her dad." She nodded, understanding dawning. "You did good," she said. He watched the bus pull away and felt the strange calm of a man standing in the open after a long time in the dark. And the storm wasn't over. He could feel it gathering again, meetings, offers, pressure to become something he'd left behind. But for now, the truth had momentum, and he intended to guide it, not be crushed by it. The shop felt different the next day. Not louder, not quieter, just aware. Conversations dipped when he walked past, then resumed with an edge of curiosity that hadn't been there before. Tools still clanged, engines still complained, but eyes followed him now, recalculating where he fit. He set his bag down at his station and pulled on gloves, grounding himself in routine. The owner hadn't pushed for an answer yet, and he was grateful for that. Decisions made under a spotlight had a way of curving wrong. By mid-morning, a reporter showed up at the bay door, camera slung low, smile too eager. "Just a few questions," she said, and he wiped his hands and shook his head. "I'm working. It'll only take a minute." "So will this job," he said, turning back to the engine. She lingered, then left, frustration sharp enough to taste. His phone buzzed anyway. Arthur Bell this time. He stepped outside to answer, the cold air biting. "She's scheduled a press availability this afternoon," Bell said. "Not just a statement, questions." He frowned. "Why?" "Damage control," Bell said, "and because the board wants it done right." "Meaning?" "Meaning they don't trust her to frame it without someone else present," Bell said. "They want you there." He closed his eyes briefly. "I didn't ask for that." "I know," Bell said. "But if you're not, she'll fill the silence." Silence was dangerous. He thought of Mila's teacher, the other parents, the way narratives stuck even when wrong. "When?" "4," Bell said. "Conference room, public feed." He ended the call and leaned against the brick, breathing slow. Preparation mattered now, not theatrics, clarity. Inside, the owner caught his eye and jerked his chin toward the office. They stood by the window, shop noise muffled behind glass. "You don't owe them anything," the owner said. "I know. But if you go," the owner continued, "go as yourself. Not whatever they want you to be." He nodded. "I will." At home, he changed into a clean shirt and packed Mila's snack. She watched him from the table, legs swinging. "Are you going to talk on TV?" she asked. "Maybe," he said. "About the car?" "About telling the truth," he said. She considered that. "Okay." Before they left, she pressed something into his palm, a small metal charm from her backpack zipper, scuffed and warm. "For luck," she said. He closed his fingers around it. "Thanks." The conference room was bright, unforgiving. Cameras lined the back wall. Reporters filled the seats, murmuring. Veronica stood near the podium, composed in a way that looked practiced rather than natural. Bell hovered near the side, tablet in hand. When he entered, the room shifted. Cameras turned. Whispers rose. He took a seat at the table, placing his bag at his feet, the charm tucked safely in his pocket. Veronica began with prepared remarks, voice steady. She acknowledged her comments, labeled them inappropriate, emphasized respect for workers. It was clean, polished, almost convincing. Then questions started. Did you threaten his employer? Were you aware of his background? Why did security attempt to remove him? Veronica answered carefully, deflecting without outright lies. The room leaned in, unsatisfied. A hand went up. "Mr. Rourke," a reporter said, "why didn't you reveal who you were?" He leaned toward the microphone, heart steady. "Because who I was didn't matter to the job," he said, "and because my daughter was watching." A murmur rippled. Another question. "Do you plan to return to the industry?" He glanced at Veronica, then back at the room. "I plan to work," he said, "wherever that lets me be a good father. If you're still here with me, subscribe now, because what comes next isn't about fame. It's about what happens when power meets accountability in the open." Veronica shifted, something tight crossing her face. A reporter turned to her. "Do you regret what you said?" She hesitated. The cameras caught it. "Yes," she said finally. "I regret underestimating him." The words were small, but they landed. Bell tapped his tablet and the feed switched briefly. Comments scrolling, public reaction building in real time. The narrative had escaped its handlers. The conference wrapped quickly after that. Veronica left through a side door, posture rigid. Bell clapped him lightly on the shoulder. "You did exactly what you needed to." He packed his bag and stepped outside, the air cooler, the noise sharper. His phone buzzed, messages from the shop, from old contacts, from people he hadn't heard from in years. Opportunities, temptations. He walked past them all and headed for the bus stop. Mila spotted him and waved both arms, grin wide. He felt the day's tension loosen as she ran to him. "Did you tell the truth?" she asked. "I did," he said. "Good," she said, satisfied. They walked home together, the city moving around them, unaware of the quiet preparation happening beneath the surface. The victory wasn't finished yet, but it was close. Close enough to touch. They reached the apartment just as the sky bruised purple, the city settling into its evening hum. Mila kicked off her shoes and headed straight for the couch. Homework forgotten for the moment. He set his bag down and loosened his shoulders. The day's weight still clinging to him like damp clothes. His phone vibrated again. This time it was the owner. He answered, already tired. "You free tomorrow morning?" the owner asked. "Board, wants to finalize things." "I can come by," he said. "Good," the owner replied. "And congratulations." He ended the call and leaned against the counter. Mila looked up. "Is everything okay?" "Yeah," he said. "It's just changing." She nodded, as if that explained everything. "Change can be good," she said, parroting something a teacher must have told her. He smiled. "It can." That night, after Mila fell asleep, he sat at the small table and opened his laptop. He hadn't touched it in months. Emails poured in. Old colleagues, recruiters, strangers who knew his past better than his present. Some offered jobs. Others offered platforms. A few offered apologies that felt more like absolution requests. He closed the laptop without replying. The next morning, he stood in the shop office again, sunlight slanting through dusty windows. The owner and the dispatcher sat across from him, expressions careful. "We're formalizing the supervisor role," the owner said. "Pay bump, benefits, flexible schedule like we said." "I appreciate it," he said. "I do," the owner waited. "But I need something else," he continued. "I need assurance that none of my guys get thrown under a bus because a powerful client feels embarrassed." The owner nodded slowly. "Agreed. And I want it in writing," he added. The dispatcher smiled, relieved. "Done." They shook hands. It felt solid, earned. As he stepped back into the bay, his phone buzzed again. This time it was Bell. "She's not done," Bell said without preamble. He leaned against the truck. "Neither am I." "She's calling favors," Bell continued, trying to soften the narrative, position herself as magnanimous. "Let her," he said. "The truth's already out." "True," Bell said, "but truth still needs reinforcement." "What do you mean?" "There's a transportation summit tomorrow night," Bell said. "Executives, media. She's hosting a private session." He frowned. And she invited you," Bell said. Publicly. He closed his eyes. Why? Because refusing makes you look small, Bell said, and accepting forces her to share a stage. He pictured Mila at the table, coloring. He pictured the charm in his pocket. I don't want a stage. I know, Bell said, but this is the last move. If you show up as who you are, she can't rewrite anything. Silence stretched. The shop noise filled it. Impact guns, laughter, life. I'll think about it, he said. That evening, he told Mila about the invitation in simple terms. It's a meeting with a lot of important people, he said. They want me there. Do you want to go? She asked. He thought about it. No. Then don't, she said, immediate and fierce. He smiled. Sometimes not wanting to doesn't mean you shouldn't. She frowned. That's confusing. Yeah, he said, it is. He tucked her in later, sitting on the edge of the bed until her breathing slowed. When he stood, she caught his hand. You did good, she whispered, echoing the woman at the bus stop. He swallowed. Thank you. After she slept, he stood by the window and watched headlights stitch the street together. The invitation sat open on his phone, the time and place precise, the language flattering. He typed a response, deleted it, typed again. Yes, I'll attend. The Summit Hall was all glass and steel, a place built to impress itself. He arrived early, wearing the same clean shirt, the same calm. Bell met him at the door. She's already inside, Bell said. Front row. Of course. They entered together. Conversations dipped. Heads turned. Recognition spread. Not awe, but awareness. He took a seat near the aisle, not the stage. Veronica appeared moments later, flawless and controlled. When she saw him, something crossed her face. Surprise, then calculation. The moderator welcomed everyone and launched into talking points about innovation and respect. Cameras rolled. Applause came on cue. Then the moderator gestured toward him. We're honored to have Mr. Rourke with us tonight, she said, whose actions reminded us that expertise doesn't always wear a suit. The room clapped, polite and real. Veronica's smile held, brittle. He didn't look at her. He looked at the audience, then imagined Mila's face if she were here. He felt steady. This wasn't about winning anymore. It was about closing the door behind him so no one like her could quietly shove someone else through it. And as the lights warmed and the cameras settled, he knew the final turn was coming. Public, unavoidable, and long overdue. The moderator's applause faded into a low murmur as the lights brightened. He remained seated, hands resting loosely on his knees, the metal charm warm against his palm. Across the aisle, Veronica adjusted her posture, chin lifted, eyes already scanning for angles. She thrived in rooms like this. Rooms built to reward certainty and punish hesitation. The moderator smiled, practiced and sincere. Mr. Rourke, she said, would you be willing to share what went through your mind when you were called to help that night? He stood slowly. The room quieted in a way that felt different from the boardroom, less hostile, more expectant. I was thinking about doing my job, he said, and about my daughter watching me do it. A ripple moved through the audience. Cameras zoomed, red lights blinking. Veronica leaned forward, interjecting smoothly. And we're grateful he was there, she said. It was an unfortunate misunderstanding, but he didn't raise his voice. He didn't interrupt her with force. He waited until she finished, then continued. It wasn't a misunderstanding, he said. It was a judgment. The room stilled. The moderator hesitated, then nodded. Can you explain? He took a breath, steady. When someone is dismissed because of how they look, what they wear, or where they stand, that's not confusion. That's choice. Veronica's smile tightened. Are you accusing me of— I'm explaining, he said gently, not accusing. The audience leaned in. The phones came up despite the rules. Belle watched from the side, expression unreadable. A man in the front row raised a hand. You designed the system in question, he said. Why leave the industry? He answered without embellishment. Because my wife got sick, and because my daughter needed stability more than I needed status. That landed harder than any technical explanation could have. Heads nodded. Someone exhaled. Veronica shifted, sensing the room slip. This isn't about personal stories, she said. It's about innovation and accountability. It is about accountability, he replied. That's why I'm here. The moderator swallowed. Ms. Halden, she said, would you like to respond? Veronica stood, flawless as ever, but something had changed. The confidence that once insulated her now reflected scrutiny back at her. I regret my words, she said. They don't reflect my values. A woman near the back called out, Then why did you say them? The question hung, raw and unscripted. Veronica hesitated. Cameras caught it. For the first time, there was no polished answer ready. Because I was frustrated, she said finally, and because I was wrong. The admission was small, but in this room, it was seismic. He nodded once, acknowledging it without gloating. That's all I needed, he said. The moderator stepped in quickly, eager to move on, but the moment had already escaped control. The summit continued, panels resumed, but the energy never fully returned to neutral. Something had shifted, subtly, irrevocably. When it ended, people approached him quietly. Engineers, managers, parents. They shook his hand, thanked him, shared stories of being overlooked. He listened more than he spoke. Veronica passed him on her way out. She stopped just long enough for the cameras to miss it. You didn't have to do that, she said, voice low. Yes, he replied, I did. She studied him, searching for leverage, finding none. You could have destroyed me. I'm not here to destroy anyone, he said. I'm here to make sure this doesn't happen again. She nodded once, stiff. It won't. Outside, the night air felt clean. Belle joined him on the steps. That was effective, Belle said. He smiled faintly. It was honest. His phone buzzed. Mila's babysitter. He answered, already moving. I'm on my way. As he walked toward the street, the city felt different. Not kinder, not fairer, but aware. Somewhere behind him, conversations continued, policies reconsidered, narratives adjusted. He didn't stay to watch. He hailed a cab and gave his address, the charm still warm in his pocket. Tonight, he'd tuck his daughter in and tell her the truth. That standing your ground didn't mean standing alone. That dignity, once claimed in the open, had a way of protecting others too. And as the cab pulled into traffic, headlights stitching the road ahead, he knew the hardest part wasn't facing power. It was choosing, again and again, not to become it. The cab ride home felt longer than usual, the city sliding past in reflective fragments. He watched it without really seeing, the night replaying itself in quieter tones now that the cameras were gone. Power always felt smaller once you stepped away from it. The babysitter met him at the door, whispering. She's asleep, she said. Asked for you twice. Thank you, he said, meaning more than the words carried. He checked on Mila anyway, easing the door open just enough to see her curled on her side, hair across her cheek, the stuffed animal tucked under her arm. He stood there longer than necessary, letting the steadiness of her breathing reset him. In the kitchen, he poured a glass of water and leaned against the counter. His phone buzzed again, But this time it wasn't reporters or unknown numbers. It was the owner. "They're talking about you everywhere," the owner said, not bothering with greetings. "Suppliers, clients, other shops." "Is that good or bad?" he asked. The owner chuckled. "Tired but genuine. Depends on how you look at it. But here it's good, real good." He waited. "I had 3 techs ask if you're training apprentices," the owner continued. "And 1 investor who wanted to know how we keep guys like you." He closed his eyes briefly. "By treating them like people." A pause. "Yeah," the owner said. "That." After the call, he sat at the table and finally scrolled through the messages he'd avoided. There were too many to answer, but one stood out. An email from the manufacturer whose logo still lived in his memory. It was careful, respectful, and unmistakably interested. He didn't respond. The next morning, the city felt alert in a way that made him uneasy. At the shop, a few customers recognized him. One shook his hand. Another said nothing, just nodded, eyes softer than before. He put his head down and worked. At lunch, Bell called. "She resigned from 2 boards," Bell said, "voluntarily." He exhaled. That was fast. "Not really," Bell replied. "It was inevitable." "Is she humiliated?" Bell finished. "Yes. Destroyed? No. She'll recover." "That's fine," he said. Bell hesitated. "You know this changes things." "It already has." "They'll come back," Bell said. "Offers. Pressure." "I know." "And when they do?" He looked out at the bay, at the men working shoulder to shoulder. "I'll decide what I want," he said. "Not what they expect." That afternoon, Mila's teacher asked to speak with him. He braced himself out of habit. "She told the class about you," the teacher said, smiling, "about standing up calmly." His chest tightened. "I hope that's okay." "It is," the teacher said. "She said you showed her how not to be small." He swallowed. "Thank you." On the walk home, Mila skipped ahead, then doubled back. "Are you still just a mechanic?" she asked, curious, not accusatory. He smiled. "I fix things," he said. "That hasn't changed." "But you're more," she said. "Everyone is," he replied. That night, a package waited by the door. No return address. Inside was a single-page letter, unsigned, apologetic without excuses. He read it once, then folded it and set it aside. Closure didn't always come wrapped in sincerity, but it came. Later, as he tucked Mila in, she asked, "Is the mean lady sorry?" He thought of the pause at the summit, the word wrong, spoken aloud. "I think she's learning," he said. "Good," Mila said, already drifting. "Learning is hard." After she slept, he stepped onto the balcony and let the night air cool him. Somewhere, someone else was being dismissed, ignored, underestimated. He couldn't fix that everywhere, but he could fix it here when it crossed his path. His phone buzzed one last time. A message from Bell. "You did more than you know." He typed back, "So did you." He set the phone down and looked out at the city, not triumphant, not bitter, just present. The victory hadn't been about proving who he was. It had been about refusing to let someone else decide who he wasn't. And that, he knew, would last. Morning light slipped through the blinds, pale and forgiving. He woke before the alarm, the city quieter than usual, as if holding its breath after a long argument. For the first time in days, his phone hadn't buzzed itself into exhaustion overnight. He made breakfast slowly. Toast, eggs, the small rituals that anchored him. Mila shuffled in, hair wild, eyes still half asleep. She climbed into her chair and watched him like she always did, measuring the day by his calm. "Is everything done now?" she asked. He set a plate in front of her. Almost. They walked to the bus stop together, her hand tucked into his jacket pocket. A few parents glanced his way, some with recognition, others with curiosity. No one said anything. That felt right. When the bus pulled away, he didn't leave immediately. He stood there a moment longer, breathing in the cold air, letting the quiet settle. The fight was over, but the consequences were still unfolding, gentler now, manageable. At the shop, the owner waved him into the office. "We finalized the paperwork," he said, sliding a folder across the desk. "Supervisor role starts Monday." He opened it, scanned the terms, then closed it again. "Thank you." "You earned it," the owner said. "And I meant what I said. We're changing how we handle clients. No more bending for bullies." He nodded, something warm loosening in his chest. That matters. By noon, the news cycle had already moved on, hungry for the next spectacle. The clip of him starting the car still floated around, but it had softened into context. Less outrage, more reflection. That was fine. Stories didn't need to burn forever to leave marks. His phone buzzed once more. A single message, unexpected. Veronica Halden. It was brief, no flourish, no excuse. Just an acknowledgement that words had consequences, and that she would fund a new apprenticeship program through the shop. No press release, no naming rights. He read it twice, then set the phone down. That evening, Mila spread her drawings across the table. One showed a tow truck. Another showed a tall building. In the center was a small stick figure holding a bigger one's hand. "That's us," she said proudly. "I know," he said. Later, after she fell asleep, he sat at the same table and thought about how close he'd come to walking away that night at the gala. How easy it would have been to swallow the insult, to leave unseen. The victory hadn't come from overpowering anyone. It came from staying. Staying present, staying honest, staying human. He thought of the men at the shop, the parents at the bus stop, the workers in service corridors everywhere. People whose value was obvious only when something broke. Maybe, just maybe, the next time someone sneered, "You're just the mechanic," they'd hesitate. And if they didn't, someone else would remember this story. He turned off the kitchen light and stood by the window, city lights blinking like distant signals. The world hadn't changed completely, but a line had been drawn in public, and that mattered. Before you go, ask me for the next story title you want to hear. Subscribe and don't miss our next story. They said he was only the night guard until the power failed. Trust me, you'll feel it. And tell me in the comments, what injustice should we tackle next? He smiled to himself, not for the camera, not for the crowd, just for the quiet certainty that dignity, once defended, had a way of echoing forward.